Chapter 15. 3 hours after my flight landed in Peace Harbor, I was sitting on the shirted upholstery in the back seat of a smoke-filled taxicab. My driver, a chain-smoking, sweaty little man who introduced himself as Golan, drove nonchalantly and recklessly, averting collisions by the thinnest of margins, all without so much as a pause in the incessant stream of words spewing from his mouth. Terrible what is happening in your country, your Afghani people and Pakistan people, they are like brothers, I tell you. Muslims have to help Muslims out. I tuned him out, switched to a polite nodding mode. I remembered Peace Harbor pretty well from the few months Baba and I had spent there in 1981. We were heading west now on Jambert Road, past the cantonment and its lavish high-wall homes. The bustle of the city blurring past me reminded me of a busier, more crowded version of the Kabul I knew, particularly of the Koshek Marga or Chicken Bazaar, where Hassan and I used to buy chutney dip potatoes and cherry water. The streets were clogged with bicycle riders, milling pedestrians, and rickshaws popping blue smoke. All were weaving through a maze of narrow lanes and alleys. Bird vendors draped in thin black sold animal skin lampshades, carpets, embroidered shawls, and copper goods. From rows of small, tightly jammed stalls, the city was bursting with sounds. The shouts of vendors rang in my ears, mingled with the blur of indie music, the sputtering of rickshaws, and the jingling bells of horse-drawn carts. Rich scents, both pleasant and not so pleasant, drove to me through the passenger window. The spicy aroma of pakora and the nihari Baba had loved so much blended with the string of diesel fumes, the stench of rot, garbage, and feces. A little past the red brick building of Peace Harbor University, we entered an area my garrulous driver referred to as Afghan Town. I saw sweet shops and carpet vendors, kebab stalls, kids with dirt cake hands selling cigarettes, tiny restaurants, maps of Afghanistan painted on their windows, all interlaced with back street aid agencies. Many of our brothers in this area they are opening businesses, but most of them are very pure. He tusked his tongue and sighed. Anyway, we are getting close now. I thought about the last time I had seen Rahim Khan in 1981. He had come to say goodbye the night Baba and I had fled Kabul. I remember Baba and him embracing in the foyer, crying softly. When Baba and I arrived in the U.S., he and Rahim Khan kept in touch. They would speak 4 or 5 times a year, and sometimes Baba would pass me the receiver. The last time I had spoken to Rahim Khan had been shortly after Baba's death. The news had reached Kabul and he had called. He would only spoken for a few minutes and lost the connection. The driver pulled up to a narrow building at a busy corner where 2 winding streets intersect. I paid the driver, took my long suitcase, and walked up to the intricately carved door. The building had wooden balconies with open shutters. From many of them, laundry was hanging to dry in the sun. I walked up the quick stairs to the second floor, down a dim hallway to the hallway to the last door on the right, checked the address on the piece of stationery paper in my palm, knocked. Then a thing made of skin and bones pretending to be Rahim Khan opened the door. A creative writing teacher at San Jose State used to say about cliches, avoid them like the plague. Then he had laughed at his own joke. The class laughed along with him, but I always thought cliches got a bum rap because often they are dead on, but the aptness of the cliche saying is overshadowed by the nature of the saying as a cliche. For example, the elephant is in the room saying, nothing could more correctly describe the initial moments of my reunion with Rahim Khan. We sat on a wispy mattress set along the wall, across the window overlooking the noisy street below. Sunlight slanted in and a cast triangular wedge of light onto the Afghan rug on the floor. Two folding chairs rest against one wall and a small copper samovar sat in the opposite corner. I poured us tea from it. How did you find me? I asked. It's not difficult to find people in America. I bought a map of the U.S. and called up information for cities in Northern California, he said. It's wonderfully strange to see you as a grown man. I smiled and dropped 3 sugar cups in my tea. He liked his black and bitter, I remember. Baba didn't get the chance to tell you, but I got married 15 years ago. The truth was, by then, the cancer in Baba's brain had made him forgetful, negligent. You are married to whom? Her name is Soraya Taheri. I thought of her back home, worrying about me. I was glad she wasn't alone. Taheri, whose daughter is she? I told him. His eyes brightened. Oh yes, I remember now. Isn't General Taheri married to Sharif's young sister? What was her name? Jamila Jan. Valai, he said, smiling. I knew Sharif Jan in Kabul long time ago, before he moved to America. He's been working for the INS for years, handles of a lot of Afghan cases. Hey, he said, do you and Soraya Jan have children? No, nay. Oh, he slurped his tea and didn't ask more. Rahim Khan had always been one of the most instinctive people I had ever met. I told him a lot about Baba, his job, the flea market, and how, at the end, he had died happy. I told him about my schooling, my books, 4 published novels to my credit now. He smiled at this, said he had never had any doubt. I told him I had written short stories in the leather-bound notebook he had given me, but he didn't remember the notebook. The conversation inevitably turned to the Taliban. Is it as bad as I hear? I said. Nay, it's worse. Much worse, he said. They didn't let you be human. He pointed to a scar above his right eye, cutting a crooked path through his bushy eyebrow. I was at a soccer game in Ghazi Stadium in 1998, Kabul against Mazar-i-Sharif, I think. And by the way, the players weren't allowed to wear shorts. Indecent exposure, I guess. He gave a third laugh. Anyway, Kabul scored a goal, and the man next to me cheered loudly. Suddenly, this young bearded fellow who was patrolling the athletes, 18 years old at most by the look of him, he walked up to me and struck me on the forehead with the butt of his Kalashnikov. Do that again, and I will cut out your tongue, you old monkey, he said. Rahingham rubbed the scar with a gnarled finger. I was old enough to be his grandfather, and I was sitting there, blood gushing down my face, apologizing to that son of a dog. I poured him more tea. Rahingham talked some more. Much of it I knew already, some not. He told me that as arranged between Baba and him, he had lived in Baba's house in 1981. This I knew about. Baba had sold the house to Rahingham shortly before he and I fled Kabul. The way Baba had seen it those days, Afghanistan's troubles were only a temporary interruption of our way of life. The days of Paris at the Wazir Akbar clan house and picnics in Pakman will surely return. So he would given the house to Rahingham to keep. So he had given the house to Rahingham to keep watch over until that day. Rahingham told me how, when the Northern Alliance took over Kabul between 1992 and 1996, different factions claimed different parts of Kabul. If you went from the Shari Now section to Kerteth Parwent to buy a carpet, you risk getting shot by a sniper or getting blown up by a rocket. If you got past all the checkpoints, that was. You practically need a visa to go from one neighborhood to the other. So people just stay put. Pray the next rocket wouldn't hit their home. He told me how people knock holes in the walls of their homes so they could bypass the dangerous streets and would move down the block from hole to hole. In other parts, people move about in underground tunnels. Why didn't you leave? I said. Kabul was my home. It still is, he snickered. Remember the street that went from your house to the Kishla, the military barracks next to Istiklal School? Yes, it was the shortcut to school. I remember the day Hassan and I crossed it, and the soldier had teased Hassan about his murder. Hassan had cried in the cinema later, and I had put an arm around him. When the Taliban rolled in and kicked the alliance out of Kabul, I actually danced on that street, Rahingham said. And believe me, I wasn't alone. People were celebrating a shaman, a Deg Masan, greeting the Taliban in the streets, climbing their tanks and posing for pictures with them. People were so tired of the constant fighting, tired of the rockets, the gunfire, the explosions, tired of watching Golbottin and his cohort firing on anything that moved. The Alliance did more damage to Kabul than the Shorawi. They destroyed your father's orphanage. Did you know that? Why? I said. Why would they destroy an orphanage? I remember sitting behind Baba the day they opened the orphanage. The wind had knocked off his carcool hat and everyone had laughed, then stood and clapped when he delivered his speech. And now it was just another pile of rubble. All the money Baba had spent all those nights, he had sweated over the blueprints, all the visits to the construction site to make sure every brick, every beam, and every block was laid just right. Collateral damage, Rahingham said. You don't want to know, Amirian. What you don't want to know, Amirian, what it's like sifting through the rubble of that orphanage. There were body parts of children.